his origin story as everybody. Like, what did we just see with Nakobe Dean?
I think we saw the same thing that we saw with JOK last year as an incredible prospect with mild size concerns, and then a injury concern, whether it's mild or not, suddenly just plummets them for some dramatic reason whatsoever. Like there's rumors of him having a torn pec that he might have to get surgery on. They act like he had his pec completely cut off at this point as well, too. And he's running around with missing half of his chest to let him drop to the 4th round like that. Second round, I could see the slip. I mentioned it while we did our mock draft. I thought it'd be either him or Devin Lloyd. One of them might slip just because linebackers were deep this year off ball ones, and it's not the premium need like an edge rusher or a corner or something like that as well too. So there's a chance to slip. But my goodness, 4th round, like every single team in the NFL passed on him at least twice, which is absolutely insane to me as well too. So you know what? Good for anybody who good for the Eagles as well too. I'll just leave it at that as well too. And I'm sorry to the NFC East as they will have to deal with that now as well too. Especially now these guys, I'm not even say running mate, but his wall in front of him and Jordan Davis again.
Yeah, and you know it's funny you mentioned both of those guys. Part of the 15 players drafted by UGA or from UGA here, setting an absolute record for players drafted in a draft, a modern record. And I mean, wow, it's well deserved for most of these players. I mean, let's be completely honest, but when you're looking at the people who are drafted, there's even a backup linebacker that was drafted for Georgia. Like that's how deep this team was. So it was very interesting.
I don't think we're going to see anything like this again, considering with the players that stayed behind and that sort of thing as well too. I don't think we'll see anything quite like that again as well too. Just considering it was pretty much the entire defense minus Nolan Smith was drafted honestly as well too, and he would have got drafted if he came out. He might have been a 1st round caliber player, so he'll probably be a 1st rounder next year. So we'll see how that plays out. But I don't think we're going to see anything like this again for a while, where one team has so many players drafted. It's just they all came out at once. That is what is so crazy about it. Like you lost 1 or 2 pretty good players last year, but they got replaced by 1st rounders this year on top of it. It'll be hard pressed to see so many players get drafted in the same draft class again. I just can't see it happening anytime soon.
Yeah, no, absolutely wild. But that'll take us, DJ, to our winners and losers. I think we talked about the other stuff in the draft for enough, but these winners and losers, DJ, I'm going to start with you. Who are your 2 winners from this draft?
We're going to go with 2 of everybody's favorite teams so far, but I'm going to go and start things off with one of the better drafting teams since they came into existence, and the Baltimore Ravens. They did it again. That is all that needs to be said. Pick number 14, they got a player that, in my opinion, was a 12th rated prospect. Some people had him as a top 5 prospect. Some people had him dropping even farther. Some people had him. This was the ultimate best player available in a perfect fit on top, and that is Kyle Hamilton. They already had Marcus Williams. They brought in a safety. You have Marcus Peters. You got Marlon Humphrey. Like you got a defensive back squad. Now you add Kyle Hamilton to the mix. You can make a case they have the best starting secondary in the NFL now. Kyle Hamilton, you could roll him in the box. Marcus Williams is used to playing that 2-eye safety look. So any concerns about Kyle Hamilton's speed and athletic ability, don't worry about it. You can play him like Cam Chancellor if you want to. Put him in that robber cover 1 zone, that sort of thing. Put him down on tight ends in the box. You eliminate any questions with that. And if he shows that he can play in that 2-eye safety look and be a deep safety or roll down Marcus Williams and move him back, well, you got a 6'4", 220-pound man with range with those man-to-man lockdown corners. And, you know, a pretty good front 7 as well on top of that as well. So you got the perfect player for the perfect defense at a premium pick as well. I think he could have gone top 5, top 7. Honestly, like some people had him rated as a top 4 or 5 prospect. I had him about 10, 11, which was considered blasphemous by some. If you compare him to Derwin James, that's when it's like, okay, hold on, reel it in a little bit, like chill with that.
Yeah.
But you compare him to a lot of the other safeties that come out besides Derwin James and Jamal Adams. He's arguably one of the best safety prospects we've seen in the last handful of years. Last year, he's better than Trayvon Merrick, who we both had a high grade on. He's better than Javon Holland, who was fantastic as a prospect. We don't know how to play in the NFL yet. Better than Malik Hooker. You can go back. He's incredible safety prospect to the right team and a very good value pick on top of that. So the Ravens do what they do, but you know what? They weren't done there. No. They decided to double dip in the 1st round after the trading Hollywood Brown and getting the best center in the draft at Tyler Linderbaum at pick number 25. At a guy who we both had in the top 10 of our big boards, a guy that could have easily went in the top 10 himself if he wasn't a center, really. And if he was slightly less undersized, slightly under 300 pounds. Oh, no. As a center.
Oh, no. How terrible.
Hall of Fame centers have been, a lot of them are under 300 pounds, but whatever, right? I mean, you can just go down the list. But you steal a center to a run blocking specialist in, well, what do the Ravens do as well as anybody? Run the ball when they're healthy. So Lamar, J.K.
who excels at zone blocking, by the way. And that's
they're going to enjoy that. They're going to enjoy the heck out of that pick as well. Then in the 2nd round, you get a 1st round talent and David Ojabo coming off that injury. But once he gets healthy, you're pairing him with Dafe Owe on the edges. Good luck getting outside the pocket, Joe Burrow and Deshaun Watson in that division, and Kenny Pickett now as well too. Good luck evading, guys. That's quite the speed and athleticism on the edges to go with that secondary. Round 3, you get Travis Jones, a first, second round, like early, somewhere in the top 50 caliber players. Travis Jones for a defensive lineman, adding depth, really good player. Oh, and in round 4, you get who, in my opinion, was the top tight end of the draft, or at least one of the top couple prospects in Charlie Kolar, to pair with Mark Andrews, a guy who is on pace to be a top 2 or 3 tight end drafted. He lacks athletic ability, but he can run 7 yards and turn around, the Jason Witten special, while Mark Andrews is getting triple teamed over the middle. The Ravens, when Lamar won MVP, what did they do better than everyone? 2 to 3 tight end sets with Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst, and squad. Now they can do that again as well, too. So give me the Ravens as a winner. They also added Isaiah Likely for good measure as well, too, just to add to that tight end group. So
to add some explosion to that tight end group.
Yeah, the Ravens knocked it out of the park once again, and they built in a way that benefits their team as well, too. So give me the Ravens for the first winner.
Yeah, no, I love that. Obviously, Kyle Hamilton, big fan of Kyle Hamilton. I thought he should have gone top 10, easy. Obviously, he slipped in the draft. The way this draft went, it makes sense that he slipped in the draft. Obviously, nobody could plan for all the stuff that happened for Kyle Hamilton to slide, but he's an all-world talent, and they got a second all-world talent in Tyler Linderbaum. I mean, how do you let somebody like the Baltimore Ravens, who literally just because of injuries last season wasn't as strong as they have been in the past because of injuries, and now you're getting a fully healthy Baltimore Ravens team, and you're bringing in all these young studs to go with it. Yeah, absolutely, the Baltimore Ravens should be a winner here.
Absolutely knocked it out of the park. And my next winner I had, well, we're going to go to one of their rivals the last couple of years, arguably, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs as well, too. Once again, the rich continue to get richer, but Kansas City did in a way that was very, very unique to them. They didn't load up on offense. They traded Tyreek Hill. Like they brought in Juju. It's like, oh, well, they'll go get one of these amazing receivers. The ones that all went in like 4 back-to-back, 4 of the top 12 picks or something like that. The receiver run happened instantly. So Kansas City, true to form, did not panic. They traded up, but they didn't trade it for a receiver. They traded up and got cornerback Trent McDuffie out of Washington. Probably one of the more versatile corners. He could play in the nickel. I think if they put him at safety, he's going to be a multiple-time Pro Bowler, a la Devin McCourty, Tyrann Matthew-esque, where you can roll him down to cover slots and tight ends. He loves to hit people, especially for a smaller guy. He sticks his nose in there. He could play all over the place. Love the Trent McDuffie pick. Your second first-rounder, we got who we both agreed was the ultimate Ravens pick, who we could have saw going number 14, but they got him at 30 in George Karlaftis. Not flashy, not pretty, not elegant, just productive as it can be on the front line to go along with Chris Jones as well, too, to get after the quarterback. So you bolstered your secondary, you bolstered your pass rush, and then in day 2, you didn't panic. You got that receiver, and you didn't just get any receiver. You got the underratedly thick Sky Moore, who can play, probably mostly will play in the slot type of role as well, too, as like a Z type of receiver to complement Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So you got one of the top 2 or 3 day 2 receivers, I think we'd say as well, too. A guy who could have went day 1 very easily, and he probably should have in a lot of our drafts. Then you also added Brian Cook, Leo Chanel in round 3, a linebacker who you got a really, really good value for. Oh, and you also added Darian Kennard in round 5 to bolster your offensive line. So Kansas City knocked it out of the park, and I think while they won't be the backyard BS specialty they were last year, the last few years, where it's just Patrick Mahomes slinging everywhere, I think Kansas City is going to be more balanced, but still as dangerous as ever. So the AFC, they don't count them out yet. Kansas City is still a contender at the top, but I think they're going to do it in a more methodical way that makes sense next year, which could make them more dangerous.
Yeah, look, Kansas City. I mean, we've always wondered, can Patty take this team under a normal offense and succeed? And we're going to find out real fast if this team can figure it out. But they do have all the talent now to be that team that does it from a very safe set. So it's very interesting to see. Obviously, love both picks as your winners. I'm going to jump over to my winners before we head to your losers real fast. And I'm going to start with a team that almost hosted the Super Bowl. Not really even almost. They didn't even make the playoffs. They were tied shy of making it in the playoffs. And that is the LA Chargers, who yet again have another fantastic draft. How? How does the Chargers keep just dominating draft picks and getting everybody they need? You pick up Zion Johnson, who, in my opinion, was the number 1 inside offensive lineman in this draft. You get JT Woods, the safety out of Baylor. I mean, what a stud he is as well. He's able to track. He's able to play free safety, really, and just play center field and catch everything. Isaiah Spiller slides right into this zone blocking team and will just have himself a day if you give him the opportunity. And that's with him coming off and then spelling Austin Eckler. So you have Austin Eckler, then you have Isaiah Spiller. Both guys are going to juke your socks off and leave you left for dust. And let's not forget Eckler can also run you over if you're not careful. One pick I wasn't really a fan of, Agbonnier, the defensive tackle out of UCLA. He's a good player. I just thought it was a little early. But that's the only one I can look at and be like, wow, that was not a great pick. But I look at the Jamari Salyer pick in that later rounds, and we're talking about a guy I have as the number 3 inside offensive lineman, and you're going to tell me he's technically listed as a tackle when they drafted him, but he's going to play. He can play everywhere on the line. This man is going to slide next to insert player here on this Chargers offensive line, and Zion Johnson is going to slide into this offensive line, and you're just going to be looking at this team and be like, how do you have 3 offensive linemen still on their rookie contracts 3 years from now? Well, Justin Herbert just getting signed to his contract at that point in time. And you're going to be like, oh, yeah, they're just dominating in the West along with the Chiefs. Like, that's just, man, the Chargers having themselves a ball.
Doesn't matter where you put Sire. You could put him next to Zion Johnson on the right side, so you have a right guard and right tackle. You put him next to Rashawn Slater at left guard. Either way, you are set. Your run game's going to benefit. Herbert's going to benefit. You upgraded the defense. Chargers knocked it out of the park yet again, and they, on paper right now, they look like one of the clear favorites out of the AFC. Granted, it's not played on paper, but right now it looks as good as it gets for them as well too. And they didn't really lose anybody major while adding Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson on the team to go with that. So my goodness, the Chargers
and re-signing everybody, and that's the big thing, re-signing everybody too.
Pretty much, they did it again. That'll summarize them at this point.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to be honest. A meteoric rise for this Chargers team over the last 2 seasons. It looks completely different from where it did 2 years ago. We said they needed to have 2 good drafts. Well, how about 2 home runs of a draft? That sounds pretty good. But that'll take me to my second winner, who somehow, yet again, has a knockout draft. And that's those New York Jets. Again, a team that I'm just sitting here looking at like, wow, you have so many things that you need to fill. What do? Okay, well, I'm going to start with having your 2 top 10 picks. How's that sound? Okay, well, I'm going to get Ahmad Gardner. I'm going to get Garrett Wilson. Fantastic picks, first of all. Sauce is going to just absolutely play into Robert Saleh's hands. Garrett Wilson is going to give Zach Wilson something to throw to as well. Just a dynamic guy who just gets open. I mean, he's going to be a very, very friendly target there for Zach Wilson. But they weren't done. No. We're going to trade back into the first round and get a defensive end edge rusher who's just chilling there, doing a whole lot of nothing for a whole lot of nothing in value as well. And we're going to go get Jermaine Johnson, the second from Florida State. Absolutely fantastic pickup there in the first round. You get 3 top 20 players with your first 3 picks. And then you go and pick Breece Hall with number 36. So before the 40th pick, where they had 1/4 of the total, or they had 1/10 of the total picks at 40, the New York Jets add 3 players that are inside of my top 30 for talent-wise. Or sorry, add 4 players inside of their top inside of the top 30 for my big board.
They monopolized 10% of the picks, and they hit on every single one of them. It's absolutely incredible. And remember when we were doing our preview, I said the Jets will trade for Deebo Samuel. They'll draft Ike Okongwu, and they'll go to the playoffs. That was I'm steadfast on this. They will make it happen, and it will happen. Well, they didn't do that, but they might have a chance to make a run at the playoffs with what they did. Like, if they couldn't do that, they did arguably the next best thing they could have done as well, too. And they knocked it out. This is the true winner of the draft. You had to pick one. I feel like you put the Jets at the top with what they did. It doesn't. We'll see if it matters next year, but this is the one you put at the top with what you needed going in.
Yeah, and on top of that, you add in Jeremy Ruckert, the tight end from Ohio State, who is a very underrated tight end in my eyes, and Max Mitchell, the offensive tackle from Louisiana, late in the draft, 3rd and 4th rounds here, and Michael Clemens, who might be the better pro out of the 2 Texas A&M defensive linemen coming out this year. That you look at like, maybe there's something there. Obviously, Clemens is a little bit more reach, but the other 2 solid picks, late 3rd and 4th rounders. I mean, like that's probably ahead. Like you definitely got a steal right there in those picks. So definitely plus value in that situation. And I mean, the Jets, I can't get over it. Robert Saleh is coming in, absolutely fantastic drafts as well. So the Chargers, the Jets, obviously they're still young. They still have to. Again, it's not played on paper. DJ, you said it right exactly. But on paper, it looks really dang good.
Two teams that did make the playoffs next year, but I could see some people putting them in the playoffs next year as well too. We're gonna find out how good Zach Wilson is next year first. That is for sure. And we're gonna see a lot of Justin Herbert, I think, next year as well too. Pencil him as a potential early MVP favorite as well too. If you're a betting guy, maybe take a look at some of those odds, see how they shift because he was close last year, and that was with the worst run defense ever. So now that you got some ballers and a new offensive line, that might be DJ's best bets way too early here in May. If you want to make an early bet, let's see what the odds are on Justin Herbert for MVP next year.
DJ's best long-term bets. We'll go that one.
If he wins it next year, we're going to play this clip at the start of every single show for the next year if he pulls it off, because I'm going to win somebody a lot of money if they listen to that. I'm not saying I'm doing it. I'm just saying keep it in mind. Go check out the odds because he might be in like that minus 3,000-ish or so range right now. And the last few MVPs, they haven't exactly been the favorites going into the season as well, too.
I'll throw $10.
Yeah, if they
like for that, I'll throw $10 at it.
10 on him. Yeah, why not at this point? So once again, the Jets and the Chargers absolutely crushing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So DJ, we're gonna flip the script here. We're gonna go to losers. I know you have a lot to say about some of your losers, so I'm gonna go first on the losers. So that way we can talk about your losers a little bit longer because there is one I know we both want to kind of hone in on here.
Plot twist is I didn't want to spend a lot of time talking about losers, but you know what? I'm sure you want to talk about one of them, so you still go first. We'll keep it rolling.
All right. So first one is first. We mentioned him in the lead up. Cole Strange, the Patriots losers. What are you doing? Stop trying to be smarter than everybody. Your whole draft really questionable, except for Bailey Zappi. That's the only pick I can literally look at in their entire draft, and I'm just like, all right, that makes sense. Like, why are you going Tyquan Thornton that early when you could have got him later? Why are you going Marcus Jones that early when you could have got him later? Jack Jones is a plus value pick, but not great. Pierre Strong, you probably could have got him in the 6th round or the 7th round. Everybody else below that, I mean, honestly, you probably could have picked him up in free agency. Like, I'm just like, nobody. The Patriots board is just very intriguing for me. That I just feel like they just pick guys that maybe they can mold them into something, like fit them into an exact role and turn them into something special, like what Bill Belichick always does. But I also feel like a lot of them were stretches for where they got picked at. It was just, I don't know what the Patriots were thinking this year. This one did not seem like a normal Patriots draft.
This screened we want to trade back a lot and just get a lot of players, but no one would trade with us where we needed to. So we're stuck taking the guys earlier than we want. So like it just felt like a reach across the board. I think that's the best way to describe it. It was a very strange draft, no pun intended. But once they're in the playoffs, I'm like, wow, Bill did it again. So I'll let it play out. But I agree with you. Right now, yikes.
Yeah, I mean, look, it means something when Sean McVay comes out and says, "Oh wow, Cole Strange, he's off the board already. I thought he was going to be there at 109 or whatever they pick." Like that tells you all you need to know about that.
Exactly.
About the Patriots draft. But my other loser, I'm going to head to the Arizona Cardinals. And this one is, yes, you got Hollywood Brown, but you traded out of the 1st round. And yeah, like not great. And then on top of that, you get another tight end in Trey McBride. You already have Zach Ertz and Max Williams coming back. So where's he going to fit in? Cameron Thomas, the defensive end out of San Diego State. Will he turn out to be well? I don't know. Big fan of Myjai Sanders at 100 in round 3. Not a bad pick. I think that's probably a little bit early for him, but not bad. And then you go another running back from USC, whatever. Smith, the guard from Virginia Tech, probably way too early for him as well. Probably the only good pick I like is round 7 in Jesse Luketa as well. Obviously a big fan of Jesse Luketa, but yeah, I mean, all these guys, again, the Cardinals picking guys that I'm just like, you could have picked them up in free agency while there's better talent sitting right there.
Surprised they didn't really do much to bolster the offensive line either, especially with Kyler wanting to get paid. You'd think, all right, well, if we're going to pay him, we're going to protect him. They didn't do as much to help him as I would have liked as well, too. The Hollywood Brown trade's intriguing. We also pay Hollywood Brown coming up soon, too. So I'm intrigued what the grand master plan is to see how it plays out. Maybe it means they're going to trade Kyler Murray next offseason. Who knows at this point? But I'm intrigued what the Cardinals' long game is.
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned they got Marquise and Kyler Murray and looking for an offensive line. They did draft a former teammate of both of those guys at Oklahoma in Marquise Hayes, the guard out of Oklahoma, at number 244 in round 7. So, I mean, we'll see if he can turn himself into anything. But round 7 picks don't normally start day 1 and turn into an all-pro. So,
yeah, not really banking on that one necessarily, but we'll see. Now we could be wrong. Maybe they flipped the script yet again. But I agree with you. It was a very odd draft for the Cardinals.
Yeah, definitely. So those are my 2 losers. I just wanted to get them out of the way now.
All right. Well, Because we're talking losers, I don't want to give them too much time, so I'm going to get them out of the way first. I'm going to start with the one who kicked us off. Yeah, kicked off the entire draft. I'm looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars as my first loser. It's not that they had a bad draft; it's that it didn't make any sense to me. Trayvon Walker, the first overall pick, a guy that has a career of 9 sacks while playing at Georgia, where you're not double teamed. You got Jordan Davis, you got Devontae Wyatt, you got Nolan Smith, you got you got Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, Tyndall. Like that's just that's just the front 7 that I named as well, too. That's not including everybody else. Like
It's the front 7 seniors.
yeah, and Nolan Smith, who I included in there too. But yeah, like that front 7, that was absolutely insane. You grabbed the arguably most talented, but arguably least productive one at number 1 overall when your team is a complete train wreck. When you need to try and help Sunshine out a little bit after not only did he have a rough rookie year, but it was so bad and everything was so bad with Urban Meyer, it arguably set him back a year. So you got to basically try and double up for lost time. I like Doug Peterson's the hire to help with that, but the player wise, I didn't really like that move there. Trading back into the first round for Devin Lloyd, like that pick, no problems. Luke Fortner, pretty good center in round 3, not too bad. Chad Mumba, the linebacker from Wyoming, in round 3, a pretty good pick. Snoop Connors, cool, but you drafted a running back last year. You still have Robinson, interesting. Then you grabbed a couple of corners. It just doesn't fully make sense with what you have and what you're trying to build. I'm not really sure what the overall plan is. That's what kind of confuses me with them. Like you missed the buck and it started right off the gate. You can't take Trayvon Walker number 1 overall. If he turns into a 15-sack season guy, I'll rest my case and apologize. But I just don't see it. It seems like at best case scenario, you get Jadeveon Clowney is what I'm feeling right now as well too.
Yeah.
I got Jermaine Johnson, who's left because of he couldn't get playing time at Georgia, had more sacks just last year with no talent around him than Trayvon Walker had in his whole career. That's pretty much all you really need to know at that point as well, too. And it's not a shot, Trayvon Walker. First round pick, deserved it. Number one overall. I was like, Jacksonville, you're putting a lot on your coaching staff to turn that guy into an all-pro, basically. You're putting a lot of pressure on them as opposed to like, hey, Evan Neal, go keep people off Sunshine. Just go be big. Hey, Akema Kongwu, just go eat people so Josh Robbins can rumble forward and set up play action. Just a lot of interesting ideas they have there. This feels like, okay, we're going to get Sunshine hit one more season, then we'll build around him. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Honestly, it's if you had flipped their first round picks, and Trayvon Walker went where they traded back in, and Devin Lloyd went with number 1 overall, you're probably like, you know what, you guys aren't losers for this pick. But
you know what, I
mean, it's definitely a little bit more acceptable in my eyes taking Devin Lloyd 1 and Trayvon Walker in the 20s. Like that just. Obviously, Devin Lloyd probably doesn't deserve to go 1 yet either, but Trayvon Walker was a stretch. He needs so much next to him to work, and he needs coaching. Whereas, like Evan Neal was just sitting there and just protect Sunshine. It just makes sense.
It's like last year when the Raiders took Alex Leatherwood. What are you doing? Then round 2 they get Trayvon Merrick. It's like, well, okay, that's cool too. If you just flipped him, we'd have been more happy. But considering though, it's kind of the same thing with these ones as well. So Jacksonville, we'll see. But the last one, the one you want to talk about the most. The other loser for me is the Dallas Cowboys. And I know Jerry Jones made a big old spectacle trying to show off like their draft board and all that sort of thing as well, too. You need offensive linemen, and you go get Tyler Smith, who's pretty good, but not great, a second-round value. Sam Williams, an edge with off-the-field troubles, which is kind of right up the Cowboys' alleyway, so that might actually end up being a great pick, a la Randy Gregory. We'll see how that goes. Jalen Tolbert, pretty good receiver. Don't hate that pick. The rest of these guys, though, Damon Clark out of LSU. I mean, you just did that with Jabril Cox last year, and you still won't put him on the field. Their draft just doesn't make sense to me either. You put all that money in Dak Prescott, and you get Tyler Smith, who maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see it when you could have got other players as well, too, considering where you were. So I am curious. It does look like we have a comment that says the Jags might be better than the Cowboys this year, and that is definitely something to see. You definitely didn't do any favors with trying to replace Amari Cooper. You need to get Zeke going again, which means you can't let him get touched for about 3 yards, because when he's at his best, he could get you 3 yards, then use his physical running style to get you an extra 3, so he'd average like 5.5 to 6. So I think they didn't do enough to help with that. Maybe Tyler Smith plays guard and they just have a dominant interior. We'll see what with next to Zach Martin, and maybe Tyler Smith could just be huge, but I don't really like the Cowboys draft. I think they had the worst draft in their own division, especially as well, too. So I did not like what the Cowboys did. It's the NFC East, so they might still be fine. But I did not like what they did on draft day. I think they could have each single pick. I think they could have gone in a different direction and been better off.
It looked like a team who had their GM show off their draft board for all the world to see before the draft. That's what it looked like. It looked like a team who had every single one of their picks taken, and they're all of a sudden scrambling in 5 minutes to try to make a pick, and yet they still stretched on every single pick. And James is exactly right here. They could have got Tyler Smith in second. They could have got Tyler Smith probably in the third round as well. I mean, there were so many better picks. Tyler Linderbaum right there. Just take Travis Frederick Jr. and be okay with it. That would have been acceptable.
Bernard Ryman was chilling there as well too. You could have got him round 2 or 3, like who I think would have been a better prospect than Tyler Smith personally. I mean, like there,
yeah, it was Goedeke was there. I mean, and Goedeke is Ryman's teammate. Like,
you could have traded up like 2 or 3 spots with all the movement going on if there was a guy you wanted, but I don't know. Or you could trade it back and got Tyler Smith and Ryman as well too. Like, it didn't make sense for what their biggest needs are. I could be wrong. Maybe Sam Williams, if he could stay on the field, he might end up being a steal in round 2, all of what Randy Gregory is. But there's a lot of questions there, and there were some high-rated edges still on the board at that point too, without the extra baggage, if you will.
Yeah, no, that's the biggest thing. Like it, and when you're coming into this, you also have to consider what are you going to do with Micah Parsons, because you can only fit 11 men on the field, and Micah Parsons kind of technically is that unclassified position guy, so he technically slides into edge, slides into a linebacker role, like he's a linebacker edge combo, nickel star hybrid, like whatever you want to call him, and it's rough, and again, James, with some heat coming in here. Sam Williams, Cowboys must didn't watch this film because he cannot get off blocks, and yes, and more yes, but no, it's it's I don't know, I don't understand their draft at all as a Cowboys person. As like, you didn't even take what you needed, and if you did take a position group that you needed, you took one that you already have like 4 guys at, like. It just didn't make sense, and it doesn't make sense, and I don't think it'll ever make sense.
Not at all.
Stephen Jones needs to already go.
Not at all. And I almost forgot to mention, too, I want to go back out because we don't want to end this talk about the Cowboys and losers before we get into the next segment. So I'm going to go back to one of my winners real quick at the Chiefs. I also forgot to mention they signed Justin Ross as an undrafted free agent as well, too. And if medical's clear for him, like he's able to play and be at least 85% of what he was in 2018, 2019 or so, they got an absolute steal because that guy could have been a first, second round pick. He had a miserable 40, and those medical concerns are kind of terrifying. But considering what the Chiefs got him for, you can't ask for a better situation. So the Chiefs potentially knocking out the park even more after the draft with their draft class. So wanted to end that one on a positive note, and great for Justin Ross. That's a great situation to go into as well, too, where the expectations aren't really that high, and you got Patrick Mahomes slinging you the ball and Andy Reid coaching things up for you. They could find a way to use him, even if it's just in the red zone, to just go be his giant 6'4" self to get acclimated. So absolutely fantastic for the Chiefs. Once again, yeah, there's the Jets number 1. The Chiefs might be number 2 right behind them overall if we were to match everybody together. So that would, and Leo Chanel at 103 was insane on top of that. So in my opinion, Jets and Chiefs were the top 2 ones that knocked it out this year. So, but no more talk about the Cowboys. No talk about losers. We've covered all of that as well too.
Well, maybe some more talk about losers, just some different losers.
We're going to get to a different type of losers. We're going to act losers on the court now as well too, as well as some winners as we move on to our main event. The main event brought to you, of course, by Colorcast Premier Audio Sports Listening app. Go ahead and download it on your Apple device. Check it out as well too. And Kelsey, we've been a little bit behind because we've been talking a lot about the journey to the draft, but it's playoff time in the NBA, and we're in round 2 now. And we've had quite a wild first round and some pretty heated second round matchups as well too. So figure we'll start things off in round 1. Kelsey, the Nets, the New Jersey Nets, the Brooklyn Nets, however you want to call them. Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, 2 weeks ago called the most skilled duo of all time. Couldn't get one game over the Boston Celtics, getting swept. If I'm not mistaken, they were the only team that was swept in that first round as well too. Kind of a bit shocking as well. Even Trae Young managed to steal one from the Heat. What does this mean for the Nets? You know, what when you see this, what does this mean moving forward as well?
We kind of had this conversation a little bit. We've touched on it a couple times. This whole idea that you don't need a coach. I think you can finally put that to bed, Kyrie. You do need a coach because you need a coach in these clutch moments, these game time moments where you need to call a timeout instead of trying to take on 3 different double teams on the same play and then dish it off to, yeah, sure, he's a world-class player in KD, but you give him 0.7 seconds to get a ball and get a good shot off with a man in his face. That's not how this is going to work. That's not going to be a successful plan of action when you're in the middle of crunch time. And that's something that coaching comes into play. And I think this is a part where at the end of the day, I love Steve Nash, love him to death. Maybe took this job a little too soon. Like this caliber of a job too soon. He probably deserved a job somewhere closer to Washington than New Jersey or than Brooklyn. Like if we're going to be fair to him, and I no slight to Steve Nash. Obviously, congratulations on the job. You are a deserving candidate. Just
that's a
in
lot
my
to
eyes,
walk into with you. That's a
yeah,
whole. That's like learning how to drive your first car, but driving a semi is when you first learning how to drive as well too. Like go. Here's your parallel parking test. Parallel park this 18-wheeler really quickly. Like that is no easy job for a first time head coach. I want to kind of add on to what you said about coaching. It also helps when no matter how great of a player you are, sometimes you just need help getting a bucket. Just drawing up a play to get you a good shot. Sometimes you just need to see the ball going. And Steve Nash did not. When Kevin was struggling, he didn't do a good job really drawing up plays, whether it's motion, off ball movement, just anything to give Kevin a good look. Same with Kyrie. They had to go full. They basically had to go full ISO ball the entire time. And this is a fantastic comment from James. Imagine KD goes and pulls a full Draymond move and calls LeBron in the parking lot. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if they call each other simultaneously because they both ended up they had a pretty rough season here. They're not getting any younger.
yeah. And we haven't talked about the Lakers. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. But I think to your point about KD, man, he's such a aloof superstar in the fact that, like, let's be completely honest, that man doesn't care about anything but playing basketball. Like, that's all he cares about. And Kyrie, I mean,
messing with people on Twitter though, and I can't blame him.
oh yeah, he loves trolling. He loves trolling. To be honest, but as far as like the things that go into being a superstar on the court, I feel like KD could care less. As far as like LeBron, I'm going to use LeBron as an example. I could honestly probably use a couple other guys in the history of the game, but LeBron's playing. LeBron demands more from his teammates day in and day out. KD, you see him on the court, he's not really into his teammates. Like he doesn't get into his teammates like what you see a lot of other great superstars doing. And it's sure, maybe it's different upbringing. Maybe he's a quieter leader. But even Tim Duncan got into his teammates when they made bad plays. And KD's just like, just give me the ball. We'll try to figure it out. Like, I feel like sometimes he's a little too just give me the damn ball for his own good.
It is interesting to see, and I am curious to see what Ben Simmons next year will bring. Because he's getting back surgery now, is what it's been reported as well too. So there was a current back problem. It sounds like one that's going to require surgery. So I'm curious how that changes things going in next year as well too. Because he has you that ability to get open shots with his fantastic ability to pass the ball, push it, and run the offense, as well as defensive versatility. And well, we saw the Nets don't play defense. So I mean, even just having what should have been a former defensive player of the year in Ben Simmons, and there could make it at least a few percent better. So we will see moving forward, but I'm curious to see how they all mold together. And I think if they could just draw up they just need to get an offensive playbook, like get a few plays that you could draw up here or there to help those guys. And then play defense, obviously. Like you got to play a little defense. You can't go along with the we are better than you and get all the way there. That's way too much talent to be a 7th seed and getting swept in the first round. So
and I'll also add you gotta work with the NBA to try to have Kyrie not playing games while he's in the middle of his fast. Because that man, you could tell there was a difference between the first half Kyrie and second half Kyrie in games when he was playing games at nighttime transition around halftime. Like there was a very clear difference of I don't have sustenance in my body versus I have sustenance in my body. And I know it's a religious thing, but there's a religious obligation to the NBA as well that maybe you have to take that into account and see that he is the only player that is doing this right now. And so you follow and you help that team out to make it an even battle. I know it seems like a superstar rule, like an MJ rule, but it's not. It's like actually just a genuine like you are a company in the United States. You have to respect somebody's religious beliefs. And it's kind of that kind of movement. I don't know if that's a thing the NBA could do, but if they're ever in this situation again, I mean, like I feel like that's a part of it as well. You have to kind of take into consideration.
If ever the situation again, I want to see Nick Claxton hit more than like 9 of 42 for the free throw line as well too, with an all-time worst percentage. And that just if he makes like 8% more, the series might even end up being 2-2. So they can figure out how to hit those free throws. That might change things on its head as well too. But that's enough talking about the Nets as the first team swept. There's quite a few other interesting things that played out there as well too. We talked about the Heat advance 4-1 over the Hawks, won pretty comfortably. We saw the Warriors do what the Warriors do, winning in 5 over the Nuggets. We saw the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves in a hard-fought battle, but John Morant and squad ended up proving to be a little bit too strong down the stretch, especially behind guys like Bane and Brooks and Jaren Jackson. A lot of the ancillary parts for a minute for them stepped up against Minnesota as well. The Sixers advancing after what looked like you're going to blow 3-0 lead for a second there against Toronto only cost Joel Embiid his face basically after getting a broken orbital bone and a concussion. So I'm going to ask you that one. We're going to pause there as they're now into the second round as well too. What are your thoughts on the Sixers? Do you think they have a chance to beat the Heat? And what happened to James Harden? Like where he looks like the James Harden that's trying to get out of Houston that way, and that looked like he ate the other James Harden.
I've been one. I mentioned this when they did the rule change last year, and I was curious to see how he transitioned his game. Fact is, he has not transitioned his game at all to affect the new rules. He is literally doing the same things he did last year. The difference is the refs aren't calling it. They're not calling your BS leaning 4 feet off the ground, like 4 inches off the ground, while faking a bump and then throwing the ball up. That's not working anymore. Like there's no more drama classes. You're not at Juilliard. You're in the middle of playing a series. Like that's where you are right now. This is something you need to figure out. And James Harden, just go back to playing basketball the way you did when you came into the league. Like you don't have to go dunk on anybody. I don't need that level of crackhead energy out of you right now. I just need energy anywhere watching this man play. I feel like I'm watching a ghost of a player literally walking on the court right now. It doesn't feel like the James Harden we've come to see at all at any point in time in his career. I mean, this is crazy to see. It's like he found a cheat code to make himself better, and then like the game got patched, and now he can't use the cheat code anymore, and he doesn't know what to do. And instead of going back to what he did well for 25 years of his life.
It's kind of weird too because he was never predicated on athleticism whatsoever. He was always kind of crafty and that sort of thing, but he dropped off almost like a guy who depends on athleticism, and then the athleticism wanes and they drop off like that. That's kind of how it feels like he dropped off as well too. He doesn't look like himself. He's up for a super max in the offseason. I don't think no one's going to give him that the way he's playing right now. Nobody should, at least. And we'll see if maybe he can rectify it against Miami here down the rest of the series. But especially without Joel Embiid, that's going to be tough because Miami plays hellacious defense on top of it, especially when they can just zero in on a guard, throwing defenders like Oladipo at you, Jimmy Butler. Like they can throw a lot of different type of defenders at you. It's going to be a tough series for James Harden. If they can somehow elongate the series, maybe get Joel Embiid back, we will see. Because Joel Embiid was well on his way to maybe putting himself in that upper echelon of players in that top 2 to 3, something like that. But those injuries are killing him. He also has that torn ligament in his hand. So James Harden, good luck, my friend. Even when he was playing at his best, this is a tough matchup for him as well too. Even when he was that 60-point triple-double guy in Houston, this would be a really tough matchup for him. So we'll have to see how that goes. And the other series that's intriguing right now, the Celtics taking on the Bucks, and this has a winner could be going to the finals real feel to it. The Bucks winning game 1 behind Giannis, his least efficient triple-double ever, maybe. I mean, 27, 14, yeah. and 12 or something like that. Shot like 9 of 20, had a rough night shooting, but still affected the game so well with how he's able to dish the ball and become Giannis the distributor and the defensive mechanism. Then in game 2, well, it was Giannis still kind of had his with a rough shooting night, but the rough shooting also followed with Drew Holiday, Bobby Portis squad, and the Celtics blew them out. So we have ourselves a tied up series now. And Kelsey, I'm going to go throw this one to you. When I look at this series, I mentioned it when we were watching it. Giannis needs to be a distributor this series because they were going to build the wall. Game 2, Udoka said, you know what? Go ahead and charge in there. We'll hope maybe one of our guys could slow you up, but we're not letting Drew Holiday get off again. We're not letting Bobby Portis get off. Grayson Allen, you will not get. They decided to go with what they used to do with LeBron's Cavs. It's like, you can eat a little bit, but eventually you're going to miss some of these tough layups, and you're not going to get anyone else involved. You're going to have to drop 60 on us. And I'm curious if that's something they're going to employ going forward. What are your thoughts on the Celtics adjusted game plan?
It's a decent game plan. It's probably the smartest game plan, but my question more is, Giannis, where'd your layup go? I mean, like, I feel like his layup in the last 2 games we've seen it's not hitting at the same, like, he's getting the basket the same exact way as he's been getting the basket his entire career. It's that spin move in the paint, leans literally right by somebody because he's so long and just flicks it up off the backboard. And instead of it falling, it's bouncing and clanking off the rim. And I need a left hand from this man. If he had a left hand, I would not be worried one bit about this defensive plan. But the fact is, he doesn't have a left hand. His mid-range, he's reluctantly shooting a mid-range game right now. And while he's still hitting it at a pretty good clip, he just doesn't shoot it enough for me to be like, oh, well, that's a concern. Like, it's actually a really smart game plan. Just, yeah, we'll let you get your 30. We'll let you get your 10 boards. But you know what you're not going to get is 10 assists. That's just not going to happen. And he is one of the better passing big men when he's moving his feet in the paint because he can see a lot of the guys cutting and things to the basket. And one of the things he takes advantage of is that dish to Brook Lopez right over the top of everybody. That if he could put a floater at the basket, would look exactly like the floater, but he doesn't do a floater, so it just goes right to Brook Lopez. But that's one thing that he doesn't have the ability to do right here either as well. So it is an advantage for the Celtics to be able to kind of cut things off. But I don't know. I think Giannis is still such a great player that he's going to figure out a way.
I think if he just had a little bit of a floater where he could just kind of pick up the ball really high and flick it, just like hold it up and just flick it over the top. Like instead of having to bulldoze into the paint, just get inside the free throw line like that Euro step, stop and flick it up, kind of like a Chris Paul floater, a Tony Parker floater when they got in the paint off of a Euro step, something like that.
Yeah.
Just so he doesn't have to crash into it, because you mentioned the layup package is struggling a little bit because when he does get to the rim, there's a Robert Williams there, there's Al Horford even in vicinity, like there's big trees in the way this time too, so he's pushing the ball, if that makes sense. Instead of kissing off the glass, he's throwing it off the glass because he's trying to force it up there and not get packed. So it's rough, and this is where this is the one series that I think they really could use a Chris Middleton to just take a smidge of heat off of him. Not a lot of heat, just a little bit. Just so when he gets in the paint, he could drop it 2 feet to a baseline Chris Middleton jumper, something like that. Just to pull people away who could create their own shot a little bit. So it's going to be a tough series. I could see it easily going 6-7, and Game 3, I think, is going to be really, really important, especially for the Bucks to try and bounce back with that first home game. And I'd be surprised if Giannis doesn't show up to play for that one. I mean, he may not be as efficient, and maybe another like 11 of 24 type of thing like that. But I got to imagine he's going to show up in this game and try and go for that 30, 10, and 10 type of game. I think he's going to bring it full steam in Game 3 because he's going to have to.
Absolutely. Now that does bring me to this question, DJ. Giannis, if he can pull this one out, even if he doesn't pull this one out, is he the best player in the world right now in your eyes?
I think he made a really strong case for that in Game 6 of the finals last year when he dropped a nice casual 50-piece to close things out, and he went 17 of 19 from the free throw line and bullied DeAndre Ayton, who people forget is 280 pounds, a 7'1" or whatever it is, or 290 pounds. You should not be bullying that man, but he still did in the paint. So my opinion right now, Giannis is the best player in the world because who else do you put above him? Maybe Kevin Durant, who's right there, but Kevin Durant, everything that Giannis is struggling with right now, Kevin struggled worse with just a week ago. It could be the Celtics defense is that good. We don't really know yet. Maybe it is that good, and it makes all of these guys struggle. We will find out as this goes along. Kevin Durant's right there. The separates for me is Giannis could is a little bit better of a passer. I think he's a better distributor, and I think he's a better defender, especially in the paint as well. So that's the deciding factor for me. I just don't know who else you could put as the best player in the world. You can't put LeBron right now. It's hard to put Kevin up there. Joel Embiid maybe was making a strong case before his face got broken. Jokic is really, really nice. No one's going to take anything away from Jokic, but I don't think you could put him up there right now as well, too. Like, he does a great job, but at the same time, like, doesn't translate to major winning at this point as well, too. I mean, he was like 1 or 2 shots away from getting swept in back-to-back years. Like, Devin Booker's fantastic, but I don't know I just don't know who else you put up there right now. That's kind of where I look
at it. I know the big question right now on everybody's mind is what about Ja Morant?
Let's take it easy with that.
Everybody seems to be loving the Ja Morant train right now. Obviously, me and you are on a different page here because Ja Morant is fantastic. But there's a but. Like there's levels to this. Ja Morant's like here, but like there's like LeBron is still kind of here. KD is here. Joel Embiid, I'd say before face injury, is like right here, and then there's Giannis. Like. He's just on another level right now, and I've said it. I've honestly said it since when he won the title. I think we might be looking at the future GOAT if he stays healthy and he continues this career path. I don't see why Giannis will not become the greatest of all time.
He does have to work on some of those simple things like free throws, get a mid range. He does have things to round out his game. He's got to get a left hand, but he's still so dominant with all of these faults we could point out with him, and he's still so absolutely dominant. Which is what
he's so young. He's so young too.
Like 26, 27. Like he's got plenty of time left. And the way he plays, he's not fully dependent on athleticism. He's dependent on length, and you don't lose arm length until you're like in your 80s or something like that, 70s. Like you don't really get shorter and lose length. So I think he will be okay for a while. He'll adapt his game as it goes. I do want to say that's not a slight to Ja Morant. He has ascended quickly into a top 10 player in this game. Problem is Giannis is competing for is in that 1-2 category. Ja Morant's still competing in that 10, in that 11 through 9-ish category, which he's 22 years old. He's fine. He's got plenty of time.
He's exactly where Giannis was at 22.
Exactly. The only concern is Ja Morant's so athletic and hangs in the air for so long, and this might be his peak at like 22, 23, as opposed to 28, 29. We'll have to wait and see, obviously. Knock on wood, he stays healthy. But right now, he's in that top 10 player. I think we're pretty set on that one as well, too. Giannis he's just competing at that 1 to 2 range as well, too. But right now, if you had to tell me to pick a player to start my team with, I'm picking Giannis as well, too, because you could build around him so easily as well. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, Chris Middleton, I think who knows what the story is right now. And I know that's Chris Middleton's a third scorer on most other championship teams, but for this team, he's Robin to the Batman.
He's the perfect Robin to the Batman. Honestly, he's the perfect sidekick for Giannis right now. It's safe to say. But now I do have to go to another Batman, if you will, maybe the OG Batman in a lot of ways. LeBron and the Lakers, and this is going to be the last question we talk about with the NBA playoffs. What do we do with the Lakers now? Obviously, they didn't make the playoffs. How, if you're LeBron, I mean, are you just playing to pass to get the scoring title and play with your son? Is that all there's left on your docket, or like what is happening with the Lakers and LeBron especially?
Well, that's what the eye test tells me. Whenever I watch any of their games, that is all that really matters. You notice how they still have a head coaching opening right now as well too. Phil Jackson reportedly is getting involved in it as well too, and him and LeBron aren't exactly bros from all things considered as well too. So I am really intrigued what is going on. It feels like it almost feels like a combination of a power struggle as well as an identity crisis, because like you traded away everything to get Anthony Davis to make LeBron happy and to go on that title run that happened in the bubble. But everything after that's been kind of a mess. The Russell Westbrook thing was a catastrophe, which we kind of knew that was going to happen, honestly, as well, too, especially when injuries crept in. You don't have any real assets to go get anything besides LeBron and Anthony, really. I mean, there's word that Zach LaVine might be interested in going to the Lakers this offseason. I mean, that'd be great. That's a fun fit as well, too, because he could actually provide all of the athleticism of Russell, but a little bit of shooting, too. So that's an interesting fit. But, like, you don't even have a coach right now. I don't even know where to go from there. We don't even know what are you going to get LeBron trying to win, or are you going to get kind of like last year's LeBron, who I'm not saying he wasn't trying to win, but he also had the ulterior motives were a little bit more obvious, if that makes sense. This isn't the 2018 LeBron that we saw taking over, or the 2016 finals, or like the Miami, those ones that are clearly done. And I think everyone has to kind of work around that as well. And Anthony Davis has to play more than 18 games. Like I've seen him more wearing street clothes in a Lakers jersey at this point as well, too. So
him and Ben Simmons are rivaling each other for best looks on the sideline.
And that's a fair point as well, too. Like, that's why I think there's too many questions. I don't even know what to think about them right now. We haven't even got through the second round of this playoff. So we'll see once they get a coach. Then maybe we could work our way forward with what's happening with that. But there's a lot going on there, which is weird when they still have 2 top 10 players in the game on top of it. All things considered, you still have 2 top 10 players to work with.
Let me ask you this then, since you mentioned the coach. Is there a coach that can handle LeBron? Or is LeBron even coachable at this point in time in his career?
I don't know what happens like in practice and stuff like that, so I'm not going to assume he's not coachable or anything like that. But when you see on game days how demonstrative he can be, as you mentioned earlier as well, too, you need somebody able to handle that. And I think Ty Lue, when he was able to handle that in Cleveland, David Blatt was kind of a little more laid back. He didn't have that go, you know what, yourself if you get in my face type of attitude. So you almost need somebody who could do that while having a level of respect. I don't know. I just don't know who the fit is, honestly. I really don't. Can you pull Eric Spoelstra maybe? Like that'd be kind of funny, considering he tried to get Eric Spoelstra fired back in the day, and look where Eric Spoelstra's at now. So that'd be hilarious. But I really don't know who a good fit is. Maybe you coax Brad Stevens into leaving the front office of the Celtics, but I don't know why he'd do that either. I mean, that's a pretty cushy job right there. But I just don't know who the answer is off the top of my head. I mean, they're looking at a Bucks assistant. They're looking at some guys, but it's tough. It's really tough because I don't know what goes on behind the scenes at the same time.
I feel like you almost have to be able to mentally destroy LeBron in basketball IQ. And I don't know if anybody, and of all the things that we complain about LeBron kind of looking lazy and things on the sideline, being demonstrative, the one thing that's always been there is his basketball IQ is like, it is way above a lot of players in a freaky dimension.
Probably,
and I don't know if there's a lot of coaches
for the 18th year in a row.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a lot of coaches in the game that have that level of mental acuity now. I mean, to be fair, basketball's been kind of boiled down into a lot of simplicities. I mean, it's all right. You get that athletic guy, you get to promote yourself as a coach for a very long time, and that's how a lot of guys get shot through the ranks, and then they get into the NBA, and you're like, oh crap. But then you have a few guys obviously who do have the mental IQ. Just I don't know if anybody has the ability or the will to sit there and battle with LeBron night in and night out mentally. I think that's a part of it.
You know what's weird is when I look at it, is LeBron with his big body, with the exception of those couple years in Miami, he's always should have been playing more down in the paint, down in the post with his skill set, his build, everything like that. And then Anthony Davis with his build, his strength, we always want him to play down on the block as a center, but he wants to play power forward. LeBron wants to play like small forward wing when he should be. It's kind of ironic. You have two players who are still so outstanding, top 75 all-time players, but they're not necessarily used to their strength. They don't like to play to their strengths as well, too. And yet they're still fantastic. It's kind of weird how that played out, but I think for them to be the most successful, they need a wing player that can get their own shot while getting others involved. Bradley Beal showed up, that would change things completely, but I don't think that's going to happen. Like, you need somebody like that just the way that today's NBA game is played. But until they get a coach, I don't know what to think of them. And you know what? They're back of mind. I'm just going to enjoy these playoffs because they're getting real right now as well, too.
Absolutely. Like, we cannot wait for the rest of the playoffs. Obviously, the Heat tonight, by the way, putting it on the Sixers as that one's getting closed out. So they're going to head up to a 2-0 lead as well on that.
Before we get out of here, though, I got to ask you. Right now, we're looking at these teams left. Who's your finals prediction?
Man, it's tough. I still think the Bucks pull it off just because I think Giannis is too much. Although I gotta say the Celtics are deadly. But I think the Bucks pull it off in the East and they make it in the East. In the West, man, the West is so hard. Honestly, you know what? I'm just gonna say the Suns again. Just
okay.
I
So
don't know why.
we got a rematch coming, is what you're saying as well.
Yeah, why not? I just you know what? Low hanging fruit. It's what I do best.
You know what? I'm gonna stick with my preseason pick of the Heat coming out of the East. For the West, I'm going to say the Warriors find a way to pull this one out. I think they're going to get by Grizzlies, and I think that is a lot of veteran leadership and a lot of ridiculous shooting and a lot of athleticism. I think they find a way to get out of the West, whether it doesn't really even matter if they play the Suns or whatnot as well, too. I think give me the Warriors coming out of the West. So I think we're going to see Warriors and the Heat. An interesting matchup that was almost a year away from happening if LeBron would stayed for the Heat one more year.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, DJ, we're not going to really have much time to go through this at the end here, but there's a UFC fight coming up soon. And I know you didn't want to talk about it shortly, but real quickly, give us the bullet point punchline, if you will, for this UFC coming up.
Well, luckily, that is kind of my specialty is quick bullet points, that type of thing, too. So UFC 274 coming up this weekend. Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje, two of the best lightweights in the world. Look for Charles Oliveira going head-to-head with an absolute banger and Charles Oliveira, one of the cleanest technicians. We're just going to go for quick bets. Give me Oliveira by submission. I'm going to say he pulls that one out. I think he does. I don't know how he does it, but he does away because he's a zombie. Look in the co-main event, look for Rose to beat Carla Esparza, getting in the rematch. And then the other fun fight, Michael Chandler and Tony Ferguson. Give me Tony Ferguson resurrecting his career with an absolute banger against Michael Chandler, fight he has no business winning, but he finds a way to do it just to elongate that career one more fight and maybe one more fight as a top 10 caliber fighter. So I can't wait. It's a very deep and fun card. Action packed.
Hey, I'll say you heard it here. DJ's abbreviated best bets for UFC 274 right there. So I love it as always, DJ. As always, guys, we appreciate you guys tuning in. And until next time, we'll see you guys later on our brand new time at 9 p.m. every Wednesday.